So yeah, I feel the same way. I do feel it's detrimental to the woman because they put so much on themselves that they do break down physically and mentally, right? And then once the woman break down physically, then they're not of value to men. You see most men they run off and find a woman that's not broke down. Then they help break her down. Then they run off. Then go find another woman, help break her down. So because the women naturally takes on that role of being that strong black woman, right? And and that's to her own detriment. Like my wife said, she had to say no. I'm not gonna do this. I'm not gonna do that. And it's all about self awareness, knowing what you can take on, knowing what your breaking point is, and a lot of people just need to sit down and do that self evaluation. Um, but yeah, and I just look back at the women in my life, like my aunts and stuff like that, and just think about how many of them are married or how many of them are by themselves due to being a strong black woman, right? And the percentage is high. And they're strong black women, but they paid a price to be a strong black woman when they really didn't have to. And I think we need to start encouraging women that they don't have to do everything. And when they don't do everything, a good man might actually step up and start doing it. And if they don't, then get rid of that man. Because if you can do it by if you got to do it by yourself, you don't need a man, right?
I know you have to go, so I'll go ahead and say my goodbyes, everyone. Mrs. Understanding has to leave, but thank you so much. We're gonna
Yeah,
miss
yeah.
you.
Have a good night. I love the conversation. Um,
Yeah.
and I guess see you guys next week or next time. Good
All
night.
right. Good
Bye
night.
bye.
See you, girl. Uh-oh, we lost this message. We lost Mrs. Jovo too. But I did want to say something really fast about the idea of a strong black woman. I know for me personally, I heard it a lot when I was growing up. I heard it from older women, right? I'm a strong black woman, or even um, from women trying to encourage me. Stay strong. We're strong black women, and I always wonder what they like where that came from. I always wondered what their experiences were made them strong. And I never asked. But just from my observations, I think it came from the fact that, a long time ago, Black people were still heavily fighting racism. We were fighting to get certain jobs. We were fighting, in the 60s for the right to vote. I was raised by my grandmother. She saw, she grew up in the South. Well, she didn't grow up in the South, but she was born in the South, and a lot of her family was in the South, so she spent a lot of time there. And she would tell me about how she couldn't go into certain stores. And she told me one time about, I think it was my grandfather, who was treated so poorly in a store, and he was sent out. And and her people were sharecroppers. And I remember, you know, learning about just some of the day-to-day struggles, just getting by. Like, we act like it's hard now, but I think we have more opportunity at our hands. A long time ago, they didn't have as much opportunity, so they had to deal with that. They had to pay the bills, and, they were barely making it. You know what I mean? And so that's what I always attributed to the strong Black woman. A lot of Black women, for one reason or the other, were raising kids on their own. Maybe it was a lack of accountability on their part, or a lack of responsibility and choosing the right partner. But sometimes men, people don't like to hear this, but sometimes men did leave. Sometimes men were killed. Sometimes men were incarcerated unfairly. There were all types of reasons why people had to raise children on their own. And that's
Mm-hmm.
hard.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's hard on a woman. And so I think about that. I know women in my family who have fought cancer, you know, so I know women who have been abused. I know, a woman, my aunt, who lost a grandchild, so growing up, when I heard strong Black woman, I attributed to those things. I thought, oh, okay, they've been through some stuff. and their heads are still high. They have to be strong. Today, I guess it's taken on a different meaning. I don't know. I think some women are like us. We're like, you know what? I'm not always strong, and I'm okay saying that. And I don't want somebody to tell me in the face of adversity to be strong. I want to go through. I want to express what I'm going through. I've had that with older generations of women where, and they mean well, right? They mean well. And this is where they come from because they had no choice, right? But now it's
survival mode. It's survival.
yeah. But now we're like, wait a minute, no, I'm gonna take a break. I'm gonna go see a counselor. I'm gonna talk to a friend, and I'm gonna be strong, but I'm gonna allow myself to feel right now. I'm not gonna sweep it under the rug and let it manifest later. I'm gonna deal with it now. And so I think strong is taking on a different meaning, and I think that's good. There is nothing wrong with being strong, and I think and I hate to keep talking about these non-factors, but Black Manosphere tries to make the strong Black woman into this negative thing. Now they're trying to equate the strong Black woman to the woman that's on welfare, using the government for child support, you know, has
filtering again.
baby daddies. To them, that's what they equate to strong. But I
Mm-hmm.
think a lot of more sensible women equate strong to being a transient state.
Mm-hmm.
Because any given day, Jovo, you could be
Mm-hmm.
strong.
I'm
But
telling you,
any given day, you could feel like throwing in the towel, So,
I'm,
yeah.
it took me a long time to get that. It took me a long time to get that. Again, going back to what you just said, the manosphere is again filtering, and they nitpicking, or they picking out parts that they want to use, and then they leaving out the rest. You know, I've been very transparent on social media about my own personal struggle. I mean, my parents did not raise me. I was raised by a village of people in my family. Um, by the time I was 30, I had buried my mom and her parents. And my brother told me something not too long ago that I'm now noticing about myself again. He said, when we were kids, you were really not a kid. You've always been a strong Black woman. Like, even when I was supposed to be a little girl. And a lot of times in our culture, people they kind of lift up, or they encourage children to be mature. Like, it's like the child that people notice is mature and does not really act like the other kids. It's like, oh, they're so smart, they're so intelligent. And it's like, but inside, I was crying out for help. I wanted to be able to be a child, but because of the household that I was growing up in, and the turmoil and everything else that I went through as a kid, it was like, okay, you Black and you got to be strong. Like, other people going through stuff that's worse than you. Somebody got to do the work. Somebody got to be the caregiver to mom. Somebody got to take care of mom's parents after mom passes away. And it was like, now that just within the last 10 years, when my daughter was being, me having my daughter and her raising her, I'm kind of like what Candace said earlier. Now that I've started setting boundaries with people, telling people no, not being the person in my family to show up for every family function, and to try to be the problem solver and the giver and the person that's there. Now that I've started setting boundaries to take care of myself, now it's, oh, you selfish, or you just think about yourself. And it's like, what I've learned is that people are going to have different perceptions of you, and that's not something that you can control. But what we control is how we respond to it. And so I'm learning not to even respond to that, simply because I know my story. That during a time where I was supposed to be a little bit selfish, supposed to be running, playing, being a kid, I was this grown woman inside of an 8-year-old's body, thinking, well, what's going to happen when mom comes out of rehab this time? What's going to happen when dad comes out of jail this time? Are we going to have Christmas this year? My grandma, she's getting sicker. Can she be able to take care of us? All these worries and anxieties running through my little head at age 8, things that adults should be, having questions about, I had to think about early. So I think that, and not to say that it wasn't additional pressure put on my brother because, I always, we tease each other about the type of kids we are. I always say he's the favorite. Shout out to my brother. Really charismatic guy, but it was like we had this extra pressure put on us because we were Black and because we came from a traumatizing situation. Oh, y'all got to do well. You got to prove to society that, you can fit in with everybody else. And it wasn't until we became young adults that we were able to say we could just be who we are and it's okay.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of Black women are now realizing that I can be who I am and it's okay. Whether it's strong, whether it's bold, whether it's Black girl magic, whatever it is, as long as I'm able to be myself, it's okay.
Okay. Any thoughts?
I just wanted to say, I'm gonna leave it here. One of the things that stuck out to me is I remember me and my husband used to have this conversation all the time about growing up and different things like that. And I remember I used to say I used to be like, yeah, the older kids take care of the young kids like that's their job, like that's their responsibility, like that's what you're supposed to do. And he used to be like, that's not what kids supposed to do. That's not their responsibility. And I'm like, yes, it is. You have older kids and you have the younger kids, and the older kids take care of the younger kids. Like that's how it is. Because that's how I grew up, right? I grew up that way. It was definitely out of necessity because there were a lot of things required of me to step into certain roles and to do certain things to fill that void and to hold that space, right? At a very early age. And I can't say that it didn't I think adversity does build certain character. It can build certain character. So I'm not just gonna say, people shouldn't have any type of adversity. But like I said, we do have to pay attention to the things that we do out of necessity because we have to. And that's a very reactive thought process. And we have to start focusing more on being proactive and being able to do that. And I feel like I'm able to create a situation where I can be first generation proactive. And it's really like training myself to even be more proactive. And I have the luxury to do that. And I do have to say that is because of the women who sacrificed before me. But it's definitely a luxury. It's definitely a luxury a lot of people don't have. And so for me at this point, being strong is having that luxury to be more proactive instead of reactive.
One thing I want to address is this belief that being strong is enduring a lot. Now, obviously, that's part of it. But I think some Black women think that they're strong when they endure that cheating relationship or that man that's cheating constantly or that man that is abusive or the family that is misusing you. I think sometimes we think it makes us strong when we sustain unhealthy lifestyles, and make bad choices or endure abusive relationships. That's strong. Like I've heard that a lot from women. And I'm like, girl, you ain't have to do that.
Because I used to tell my wife all the time, like, listen here, I'm not having no kids. Truth. That's how you thinking. You think my daughter's about to be up here cooking for kids and no, that ain't how that's supposed to go. I don't know what you talking about.
I got emotional when she said that because it's like Black kids. We need to allow our children to be children. Like seriously. Like I tell my daughter all the time, your only job right now is to be a child because it's such a small window.
Yeah.
It's such a small window. And when I look back over my own life, I promise y'all I can only pick out certain ages where I actually felt like a kid. And it was like once middle school hit and high school, I had to think about things that adults had to deal with because of the circumstances that I was in. And it's just like, I'm like, Kenan, I'm trying to break this cycle of, oh, well, when I was this age, I was blah, 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 blah. And it's like, stop, time out. She ain't you. She got mom and daddy. She got a home. She got stability. Like we need to be able to tell our children that it's okay for you. What bothers me is when I see children, our brown and Black children, when they're not laughing, when they're not smiling, when they don't have joy, when they almost as serious as me. And it's just like, it bothers me. It does something to me. And I have to tell them, you have permission from the day that you came into this earth to just be yourself. Like, you don't have to, you can laugh, you can be silly. It's okay.
Mhm.
It's okay. Because I grew up, you know, my paternal grandmother, I love her to death, but they grew up in a very strict household, and it's like military, and you know, like Ashley, what you were saying, they grew up as sharecroppers, and it was like work, 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 work.
Mhm.
And they only had like a small window to be silly and to be playful. And it's like, that can be strong too, you know.
Okay. Yep. All righty. Well, I appreciate you all. I'm going to go ahead and close this out unless somebody wanted to add something. Anyone? All right, I'm going to go ahead and close this out. We had a really good conversation. I cannot wait until the week after next. We're not going to be live next week, but we will be live the following week. If you guys have any suggestions for topics, leave them in the comments section. You can also find us on Facebook, the Ladies Room group chat. Okay, we want to hear from y'all. Okay, so go ahead, tap that like button, tap the subscribe button, and tap the share button too, because we want to hear and see from everybody. Everybody is welcome to the Ladies Room. All right, peace out, y'all.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.